I'll try this a new way. I'm gonna show you the tricks that I know. I'm getting tired of talking, and I need more of a show right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a fun night. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I won't be turning around. No, I won't be turning around. It's the right time. You feeling alright? I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. I think I'll do it on my way. I'm gonna show you what I'm going through, get you out of your comfort zone, 'cause I need more of the truth right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a fun night. You got me on tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high.
Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word and the final ever, or well, not ever, that was harsh, until winter next year, the Race to Go Racing, because we don't need to race to go racing anymore. We are 7 days away. In fact, if you're looking forward to FP1, we are 5 days away from the start of F1 2020. Jesus Christ. My words, it has been a long old wait, but Formula One is very, very nearly back. And I know I can see in chat you're all very hyped. I'm very giddy today and will be all week. So, yeah, enjoy that. It could be very interesting. I'm going to be joined today by the whole team. I've got the band back together. I've got Jonty here, Stuart and Dan, and we're just going to be talking nonsense really about the Formula One season, looking ahead to it. We'll make some bold predictions as well. I'm sure Jonty will be predicting that George Russell's going to win 9 races or something crazy like that, and we'll also take a load of your questions from chat. I've got some questions from Twitter as well and from on YouTube, so just a nice casual stream today to just chat about Formula One. Thank you very much to Jack Chambers for the super chat there. We are back, baby. Indeed we are, darling. It's it's great to be back, but we're going to kick things off by introducing my wonderful guests. I hope introducing my wonderful guests. We're going to start. It's been just so long. It's ridiculous how long it's been. I'm sure he'll remember. It's probably written on his calendar. A very, very, very good afternoon to Jonty.
Good evening, everyone. God, how excited are we?
It's ludicrous. I I can't stop dancing is the truth. I'm just so excited to have Formula One back. It's been, I mean, when was the last time you were on a stream, Jonty? Possibly Abu Dhabi.
Testing.
Of course it was, yes. So testing. So February. But to be fair, I've only streamed 2 or 3 times since then. So yeah, it's good to hear your voice again, mate. Are you pumped for this season? Not just Formula One, of course, Formula 2 and Formula 3, about 3,000 races every weekend between now and December.
Yeah, it's going to be mad. I think we've got 8 races and across 8 weeks and across various series, we've got about 15, 20 races. It's going to be great.
Going to be insane. I can't wait. And also a very good evening as well to the chain bear himself, Mr. Stuart. How are you, Stuart? Are you as pumped as we are? All a bit giddy?
I got to assume you're asking me that because the name just blanked out as soon as you said it. Hello.
Yes, hello.
I heard "ch," and then I thought that might be me. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm a little bit. I don't know quite how to process that we might actually be getting some racing just next week. I'm so ready for it.
It's been so long. It's crazy how long it's been. 7 months since Abu Dhabi and 5 since testing. So that's how have we coped? And it's not. I mean, we've not been able to go out and do anything, have we, to kind of make up for the fact that we're not making content? Yeah, mad.
Yeah, but finally, we're going to have some on-track action to talk about. Wow, see, we're going to have results. We're going to be able to see how the cars compare with each other. I'm not ready for it. I've forgotten how this works.
Someone in chat there, it's been 84 years. That insert gif here, that's exactly how it feels. And hopefully we've got normal Dan back this week. Last time out we had Robo Dan. Good evening, Dan. How are you doing, mate? You better be dancing.
Good evening. Fingers crossed, no Robo today. And if there is, just get rid of me. You've got 2 other experts with you tonight. But it's so surreal that we're back to racing next week. Yes, dancing quite a bit at the moment, I've got to say. But I just cannot wait now to get some on-track action.
What are you most looking forward to? Is it just seeing cars on track again?
Well, I've gone 7 months without seeing a Grosjean crash.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to a couple of those, I think.
Oh, poor Rogro. I'm going to be honest. I've got absolutely no structure plan for this stream whatsoever. I just wanted to get the band back together, the 4 of us, and just talk about our expectations for this season. So I suppose, really, I mean, do we want to talk about testing, Stuart? Is there any point? I mean, you can't really read anything into testing at the best of times, but with a 5-month gap in between, it's even more irrelevant than ever, isn't it?
I'm going to be honest. I barely even remember the results of testing. I'm going to have to do some serious research this week. But like you say, there might not be much point. I was reading earlier this week, Renault was saying that they, between testing and now, they've basically bolted on 2 key updates to their car that were going to be coming out in like Bahrain and Barcelona or something. So their car's going to be nothing like what we saw in testing. So I'm assuming all the other teams will be following suit, except maybe Williams, who probably have less updates blocked in. So yeah, I think we're going to get answers on the Friday morning, and testing is out the window.
There's a lot of unanswered questions anyway from testing, isn't there? What's DAS going to be like? Is that going to be the thing that wins the World Championship, or is it going to make no difference whatsoever? Where are Racing Point going to be? Are Ferrari bluffing? Are Red Bull title challengers? We've been sat on this hype, Jonty, since February, and I haven't got any answers. All we can do is guess, but I would say that this could be especially if the season's a lot shorter, this could be one of the best seasons we've had for a very long time, because nobody can afford to put a foot wrong if they want to win this championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been the constant question since that first race, Australia, got cancelled. People saying, "Oh, is this championship going to be worth more? Is it going to be worth less with less races in it?" And it's definitely going to be worth more, because you make one mistake, there's so much less time to get it back. There's so much more to lose. And any of the top teams, any of the top 3 teams, if they have one sort of double DNF on the weekend, that's going to really hurt them.
Yeah, could you imagine a Mercedes situation from Austria a few years ago, both with mechanical issues? I'd like to think that Mercedes are probably still the favourites for the constructors, but it's only going to take, like you say, one double DNF, and all of a sudden that opens the door, doesn't it, for Ferrari and Red Bull? It's quite exciting. I'm not necessarily want Mercedes to fail, but it would be nice to see a different world champion. But I'm just so ready for this now. What about you, Dan? I mean, testing, we had DAS, didn't we, which got us all quite excited. We had the tracing point, which I think we're all looking forward to seeing. But is there anything specifically you really are so desperate for an answer for that you've practically not slept since that final day of testing?
I think just the midfield fight in general, I always find so fascinating. I mean, there was the stories of Tracing Point, of course, Renault completely changing the philosophy of their car. But even teams further down the order, like Williams, they seem to make such a big step forward this year. Haas seem to be in a bit of no man's land. They could be a dark horse. They could be right at the back of the grid behind Williams. And I think what's so fascinating is we didn't really get to see the evolution of the cars between testing and Melbourne. And then we've had another 4 months on top of that. And usually in that time period, we'd also get a Spec B car at the Spanish Grand Prix, and we're past that as well. So I'm just looking forward to seeing all the little crazy little tweaks and aero flicks here and there and developments all the teams have made. But certainly I think Williams are a team I'm just really looking forward to see how much of a fight they can have over 2020.
What do you reckon's their new livery? Much cleaner, isn't it?
Oh, it's so nice. It reminds me of a bit about the Brawn, the 2009 Brawn, but replaced like that yellowy green with a blue. But still, it's really smart. And when you compare that to last year's car, so much better. really nice.
Did you not like last year's car, Dan? I thought you were a big fan of it. I don't ever recall you saying anything negative at all.
We'll leave that there.
I might have to dig out that stream where you just went on one. That was brilliant. Might have to find that one out. But yeah, we'll start with the championship, I guess, then. Coming to you first, Jonty, are you expecting Mercedes to be running away with this one, or do you really believe this hype behind Red Bull, and especially in a shorter season, that Max Verstappen... I tend to believe personally this is his best chance to date for a world championship, and I think this is going to be Verstappen versus Hamilton for the world championship, with a little bit of Leclerc maybe thrown in there, possibly some Vettel, maybe Bottas as well. But Mercedes have got to be favourites, surely.
Oh, absolutely. You know, they're still the dominant force, and a big gap, you could probably argue, is going to help them even more because they've got the best of everything in the factories. And even if we've had these massive shutdowns, they've still got guys at home. They're not just sat there doing nothing. All of the engineers will be sat thinking, working stuff out. You know, you can get basic wind tunnel stuff to run at home. They've probably got the top end of that where they can be trying various things out. You know, the best people doing that for so long, they will have found more time. That's a given. So absolutely the team to beat.
Ellie in chat. Hi, Ellie. I just waved. That was pointless. Says, unless it's the final time we get to see Hamilton versus Vettel showdown for the title, that would be... Oh, yes. I quite fancy that one, Jonty. I'm not going to lie. The idea of them going... Especially this could be Vettel's last ever season, which I think is sad. People are going to give me stick for that, but I think it's sad. But yeah, that would be quite cool to see. I think Ellie's got a point there, Jonty. Definitely, that'd be epic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that chance that we might not get another chance for Hamilton versus Vettel for the title is a bit disheartening when we're so excited about the season. The chance that it might be the last time, I don't like that. We haven't had a proper chance to see them toe-to-toe for various reasons over the last few years.
We were teased a little bit, weren't we, in 17 and 18, where it looked like it was going to be actually Ferrari. Very good starts to the season those 2 years, and Vettel leading the championship a couple of times through that first half of those 2 years, but never really came to anything. Favourites, Mercedes, Stewart, or do you think we're in for a surprise? Go on, mix things up a little bit.
I mean,
I dare you.
Obviously, you got to say Mercedes is the favourite, but just on the information we got. But I think, well, I think the biggest mystery is around Ferrari because they did not have a good testing. But then sometimes that doesn't mean anything, and we don't know what has happened in the interim. I think Red Bull have a really good chance, a better chance they have in years at sort of taking hold of this championship if they've got the right equipment underneath them. You know, and as we say, we're starting off with 3 circuits that could really suit them, and if you get yourself in a good position in the championship, it's easier to hold on to it going forward, especially when we're not really sure what's going to happen. You know, a few months in, we don't even know what circuits we're going to the second half of the year. So, if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I might put a cheeky flutter on Red Bull because I think it would be a good return on your odds. I'm not endorsing anyone to go and do this. Do not follow my advice.
Do you... Because I did the maths on this, as some may remember, in my awesome video. Do you think there is any truth in this, Stuart, that the first 2, maybe 3 races benefit Red Bull? Because when I look at it, you know, yes, the last couple of years they've been very good at Austria, so maybe the first 2 races, but based on the last few years' worth of results, it's anybody's game in Austria. Then it's pretty much Mercedes there through Silverstone and Spain, and then Ferrari are back in the mix. Do you think that's all just hope, as opposed to there actually being anything in this whole the start of the season favours Red Bull thing?
I mean, historically, you got to look at Red Bull, particularly Max Verstappen for Austria. I don't know if he's being willed along or people in the stands are just blowing him towards him. But that looks good. Hungary should be good for Red Bull because they're technically normally pretty good in the corners, even though it hasn't always borne out in the results. And then we've got these couple of, we say, high-speed circuits, not necessarily power circuits, but all the corners are quite high speed in Silverstone and Barcelona, and then you go into the power circuits. So yeah, this sort of this run of first 8 through Europe, we're going to get a little bit of a flavour of every kind of circuit. And I think by the time we get to Monza, which is actually like quite a long way away, but by the time we get there, we'll definitely have a feel for like the strengths of the top 3 teams, if they are the top 3 teams. We don't know that like Renault might have like pulled out some magic out of their backpacks. We don't know. But yeah, I would be surprised if Mercedes don't sort of assert some kind of stranglehold's too strong, but I feel like Mercedes are definitely going to be the ones to beat. But if anyone's going to take them on in this first sort of European leg, it'll be Red Bull.
Do you agree, Dan? Or do you think, right, Ferrari, are they sandbagging or not? Honestly, because to me, I think they are. I think they're just playing games.
I don't think they're as far off as people think they are. I mean, talk coming out of winter testing that they could be in the midfield. load of rubbish. That's never going to happen. I mean, I'd love to be proved wrong in the sense that I'd love midfield teams to be fighting at the front, but I think Ferrari are going to be in the mix at the front. I think they're going to have a car capable of winning. Is it going to be in the level of Mercedes and Ferrari? I'm not really too sure. And I think, like you were saying a second ago, are the circuits necessarily going to suit the Ferrari? Again, I'm not too sure, but certainly probably after France last year, the least we talk about that race, the better. But as soon as we hit Austria last year, I showed up to most weekends not having a clue who was going to win out of Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes, because it was Leclerc who was on pole in Austria last year. He led most of the race. So it's not as if it's a circuit that's not great for the Ferrari. Austria is a circuit I'd say is pretty open to anyone. So I think the one thing that's potentially going to hold back Ferrari this year is going to be the situation with Sebastian Vettel. I think team orders are going to kind of have to go out the window. And if they are used, will they be respected? I think that's going to be a fun one to keep an eye on. And I think Mercedes are well oiled in that department. They know that Hamilton's their de facto number one and Bottas number two. And Red Bull, though I'm really excited to see what Albon can do this year, I think Verstappen is clearly the number one there. So I think initially Ferrari will be behind those two teams. But I think Bottas could be one that's going to be a little bit underrated. Austria is a circuit he's done great at since joining Mercedes. 17 got pole in the win, 18 got pole and retired due to a engine failure or whatever it was on that particular day. So I think even if Ferrari aren't in the mix, I still think we've got three very capable drivers of fighting for that championship. But I think don't sleep on Ferrari over the season.
Interesting you mentioned Bottas because he does have he does seem to prefer what's the word I'm looking for, more comfortable almost at that track than Lewis, isn't he? So it could be that he gets a nice early head start in the championship, but then again he had that last season, didn't he, and still ended up 87 points behind. So I mean, you're going up against Lewis Hamilton, you know, you need more than one race to go your way, don't you? Definitely. So I think Ferrari, I think Constructors' Championship wise, I don't see that happening, even if they had the best car, because I think that's going to get explosive between Leclerc and Vettel, because Vettel isn't going to be hopping out of Leclerc's way at all, is he? He doesn't have to now. He can ignore all of that nonsense and crack on with what he wants to do. So I think that would be gone. But I'd quite like to see Ferrari in the mix with Mercedes and Red Bull. I hate the idea of two going for the title and one being sort of cut adrift and then off we go to the midfield. But I agree with you, Dan. This talk of them being behind Racing Point, I mean, yeah, all right. This may come back and bite us both in the backside, but I don't believe that for a second. Your take on that, Jonty? Do you think Ferrari are genuinely struggling, or do you think they've taken a leaf out of Mercedes' book and they're just telling us a few porcupines to play down their chances?
Oh, they're never that far off, are they? You know, no matter what people say or what Ferrari themselves say, they're always going to be in the mix. It's going to be tricky. I think they're going to struggle a little bit later on, because we've still got this whole question about the engines that's been rumbling on for God knows how long, and with the ridiculous handling of it by the FIA that everyone seems to have suddenly forgotten about. They still haven't announced what the details are, you know.
Have they not? Is there nothing at all?
Not that I've seen. Stuart, did you see anything?
No. I don't always see everything, though, so you can't rely on me.
Dan?
No, I've not seen anything.
You know, that's still there. How much is that going to sting them? Because there was definitely a drop-off in performance after that all started. I'm wondering if that's going to come into play. Have they been doing a load of... Well, they're going to have been doing some power unit development, obviously. Will they have got back whatever that bonus was? I don't know. But they're definitely going to be up there. The question is, how much closer are the top midfielders to them? Because I'm certain they're third of the top three right now.
I think, yeah, they're never, you're right, they're never far away. And they've kind of changed their tone a little bit, haven't they? They were very downbeat. The reports in January were the car was worse than expected, was the quote. They then said after testing, they're a long way off. And this last week and a half, 2 weeks, they've sort of been going with we've made a few changes, we've tweaked a few things are looking a bit better. And that's what, I didn't believe them anyway. And then Yeah, all of that. Just, I was kind of right, okay, so, and let me guess, in Austria, oh, wow, we just managed to find this part that was lying around in the garage, and we didn't think, oh, we'll stick it on the car, see what happens, and boom, second a lap faster than anybody else. But we'll go on to the midfield, actually, because there's a question that's been put to me a few times, but super quickly, I'll do a load of super chats that came in. G-Van, thank you very much for your contribution. Sam Norton says, can't believe it's only a week. This time next week will be race reaction time. And by the way, today would have been the French Grand Prix race reaction. So it's not all bad news. This whole COVID-19 situation. We don't have to endure France. Danny
We saw as much action today as we would have.
Exactly, yeah. Danny and Norman says, welcome back, lads. We've missed you. We've missed you too. And DK Films, second best birthday present of my life. It's race week, boys and girls. Everybody get ready to @Jess in the morning. AJ Guna, hey guys, love all your content. How do you think McLaren will fare with the limited development and engine switch to Mercedes in 2021? So hyped, all in capitals. So, yeah, I think we're all just a little bit hyped. I think there was another one there which keeps escaping. G-Van again says, Tracing Point could potentially upset third, ? Well, that's what I wanted to get onto was dark horses, because a couple of people asked me about this one. Who have we got? So R Man over on YouTube and Chuckle Bro on Twitter says, can you do a video on the dark horses this year? I think it's safe to say everybody's expecting Racing Point to be the big surprise of the midfield and early on maybe being fourth fastest. I'm kind of not so sure. I'm erring on the side of caution a little bit because obviously they've copied the W10, but that doesn't guarantee success, of course, because Haas have been copying the Ferrari for the last 3 or 4 years, or since they came into Formula One, and they aren't exactly challenging and fighting for a podium. Although they had some good results in 18, of course. But I'm not sure they're going to be challenging the top 3, but they've got a great chance of being top end of that midfield. So I think they're definitely a dark horse for a lot of people. But a team that I'm quite keen to keep an eye on is Renault as well. I've got a feeling they've built a decent car. It looked nice in testing. Sort of the nose has grown on me. I'll give Aldas that. He wins. The nose has grown on me, definitely. It was a good looking car. It had some good pace from what we can read into testing. They're quite quiet about their chances this year as opposed to being, we're going to challenge the top 3. So I think they might be ones to keep an eye on. But Racing Point, are you expecting them, Stuart, to rock up and shock us all? Front row lockout in Austria and go on and win the title like Braun did? No?
Well, I took the words right out of my mouth. Well, maybe not that much, but they had such a solid run in testing that you'd be. Hello?
Yep, you're all right. You went a bit robotic for a second.
Okay. Well, I'm on Virgin Media, so my internet's not been great the last few weeks. So if I disappear, that's why. Yeah, Racing Point had such a strong run in testing. It's so hard. It's so hard because there's been such a big gap between testing and now, and we know that there are like scheduled updates for all the cars and things. So, but if we ignore all that, because we can't possibly know what those updates are going to do. Yeah, they had a bit of a wobble last year because they were sort of recovering from the takeover and getting their feet firmly back on the ground. But they do look pretty good, and it'd be nice to see that kind of come back for them. I feel I have such mixed feelings about the midfield because every time there's like a feel good story about one team coming good, it comes at the expense of another team. And I'm like, oh, but McLaren had just got up to 4th, or Renault had just got their arrows in a line. It's tricky, isn't it? Sort of where you place yourself emotionally reading the midfield.
Yeah, because you so long waiting, like you said there, McLaren to get back to 4th and be challenging the top end again, and to fall away would be harsh. But some interesting points actually made by quite a few people when I put a post out on Twitter and Instagram the other day was a lot of Racing Point this season and their performance and sort of where they're going to finish in the championship could come down to the length of the season. Some people saying if it's a short season, then they expect them to be 4th because there's not going to be a lot of time for people to develop. Whereas if it's a longer season, which is, they want to hit 18 races, if they do that, then the rest of the midfield are going to develop and overtake them, and that could knock them down in the championship. So they're definitely a team to keep an eye on, Jonty. And maybe early on they will be, top 4 contenders, but it's a big ask for a team who's, honestly, big focus is on next season and becoming Aston Martin. There's a lot going on there at the moment, isn't it? Quite a transitional year for them. So it would be a lot to ask them to end up fourth and then have to keep developing that car through the year to try and keep fourth. So what do you think? Do you think fourth place initially then fall away, or do you think they've got what it takes to stay fourth?
I think it's right to say fourth place initially and then fall away, because you've got to think they've got all of this ongoing stuff sort of outside of this season. You know, the team ownership change, the name changes, and loads of the midfield has had various personnel changes as well. So, you know, it would make sense for them to say, right, let's copy the best car in the most legal way we can, because we know it's good. So we can then sort of just stick with that and only develop a little bit while we focus on further years, along with all of the extra investment and effort that's coming in through all the changes. You know, that would make a lot of sense to me. If they're going to, you know, there's obviously a lot of interest and determination with Lawrence Stroll getting involved with Aston Martin and rebranding the team that way to look to the future. You know, they're in this for a while. So it would make sense to focus on that future rather than a funny season that no one knows what's going to happen anyway, where all that money could be wasted.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, big year for them next year. But, you know, on copying a car, you just would, wouldn't you? Like you say, it's the best car on the grid. Why not? If you can get away with it, then that's fine. But I'm not sure. Yeah. It's like I say, the Haas thing. That's why I'm a little bit sceptical. It doesn't always work when you copy a car. But with the greatest of respect to K-Mag and Rogro, they don't have Sergio Perez, who, if the pace is in that car, he'll wring it out of it and pick up some big results.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, go back to a test at school. You're not going to copy the thicko next to you, are you? You're going to copy the smart kid the other side.
I was too dumb. I always copied the thicko next to me. Then realised I was the thicko next to me. Dan, what do you think? Racing Point, fourth place, or have you got another dark horse? Go on, mix it up just a little bit. Who are you keeping an eye on?
Well, I think Racing Point might have the fourth fastest car. I'm just not too sure if Perez's back is going to be able to carry that team as much as it's going to need. Stroll, I'm not quite sure he's on the level of the other drivers in those midfield teams. I still think he's good enough to be an F1, but certainly near that lower end. I think obviously McLaren are going to be trying their best to retain fourth place, and I think Norris is going to get even better this year. And I actually think Sainz, though he's in a similar predicament to Ricciardo and Vettel, I still think that relationship will be fine over the season. I don't think that will take a hit, and I still think he will want to end his McLaren career on as big a high as possible. But I'm kind of in the same boat as you, I think, mate. I think Renault have kind of gone under the radar a little bit. I think there may be some fireworks between Ricciardo and Ocon, but I don't think it'll be on the level of Perez and Ocon. And I think Danny Rick is another driver that is coming off an average season, will want to try and prove himself again in that midfield. And Ocon is a driver who is probably more desperate than any of us for Formula One to return next weekend. So I think he's going to be raring to go this year. And I don't think that car was particularly bad last year. Reliability wasn't fantastic. And if they've sorted that out over the winter, I think they should be in a good place to challenge that midfield. So certainly I think at the front, Renault is one I think could surprise a lot of people. But even AlphaTauri, I think they've got two drivers that are going to be really hungry to try and prove themselves again in that Red Bull car. Gasly, when he returned to that team in the second half of last year, was fantastic. One of the best drivers in that midfield when he went back to Toro Rosso. So I think if they follow a similar model, like we've already said, with Haas copying Ferrari, with Racing Point copying Mercedes, and of course, AlphaTauri are going to copy Red Bull, I think they could be a team that not necessarily be fourth in the constructors, but certainly could be causing a few upsets throughout the season.
I think the dynamic I think Renault are going to be in the fight for fourth. I think McLaren will be as well, and I think Racing Point will be for the first part of the season. But the dynamic I'm really looking forward to is Ricciardo Ocon. I think that has the potential to be explosive, but also has the potential to be very rewarding for Renault. If they can get on and they can deliver the performance, Ocon's got very good raw pace. Daniel Ricciardo, we all know how good he is. Ricardo's going to want to go out with a bang. He's going to want to prove a point after last year, like you say, Dan. Esteban Ocon, a year out, he's going to want to prove himself. It could be brilliant. However, Renault can get very salty. Let's be honest. If they know Daniel Ricciardo is leaving next year, I have a sneaking suspicion there will come a point in this season, if not from the first race, very soon in, that they put everything behind Ocon, because he is the driver that is with them for the next couple of years, and they're going to want to make sure that he is delivering what he needs to. Developing the car for all of that kind of stuff. I think they'll put everything behind him, and that's going to hurt Ricciardo, and that might lead to a little bit of argy-bargy on track. And that's why early bold prediction, just because of that, not necessarily on performance or pace, but I have a sneaking suspicion Ocon might just beat Ricciardo this year. That's not a fanboy thing or anything like that. It is just because I think Renault are going to start putting everything behind him, because we've seen with the rumours regarding McLaren wanting to run an old car, McLaren said, it's because we haven't got a car that could old enough to run a Renault power unit, and then other reports came out saying Renault had said no. So that's just rumours. It could be nonsense, but they can get a little bit salty, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Ocon pipping Ricciardo in that one. But I think that's the dynamic for me. It's some really good teammate battles this year to keep an eye on. Ferrari we've already talked about. Can Bottas, are we going to get Bottas? Rolls eyes 3.0. What is Albon going to do up against Verstappen? Can he keep hold of that seat? Dan's mentioned the AlphaTauri boys. Sainz, what's he going to do at McLaren? And McLaren going to get behind Norris rather than Sainz? I mean, there's some good stuff. Were you actually, Jonty, because I've not spoken to you about this, were you surprised that these driver deals were done so early with Ricciardo and Sainz?
Yeah, I really was. I put it out there on Twitter, and I still stand by it. I think Sainz may have made a mistake, at least going so early, but can anyone blame him? Driving for Ferrari in F1 is like the ultimate racing driver's dream. But even more so on the Ricciardo thing, I think it speaks volumes about how much he really, really hasn't enjoyed it at Renault. Last year was really bad. So
does he know something that we don't as well with Renault? Is he jumping from what is the phrase? Leaving a sinking ship, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, when he went to Renault from Red Bull, he made a whole big song and dance and lots of talk about getting on board with their plan, with what they were planning for the future, where he could see the team going, and then he's only completed a year for him. Off he goes. Like, really? That was a surprise. So maybe they're not. Their big long plan isn't all that great.
It's interesting because a lot of people were quite sceptical when he left Red Bull, weren't they? For Renault, thought that was a mistake, and I don't know. There's something's gone on somewhere. It might not be anything about their future. It might not be anything like that. It might just be that he didn't like the team. But he never seemed quite himself at Renault. Jivan just saying Ocon over Russell for Mercedes if Bottas is out in 21. Thank you for your contribution, mate. I'll come on to that a little bit later. Go on, Jonty.
Yeah, and you're quite right when you say that Renault can be a bit salty, or specifically Cyril. It's highly likely that Ricciardo and Cyril really have not gelled together. And no matter how well you're performing, how good things are, if there's that level of ill feeling, it ain't going to work, and someone's going to want to get out. And it's never going to be the team principal.
No. Just watch Renault. And McLaren's an interesting one as well, isn't it? Or aren't they, probably? With Sainz, Stewart, I think Zach Brown and Andreas Seidel seem quite sort of opposite to Cyril Abiteboul in that I think they'll probably will stick behind both drivers for this season because their priority will be the constructors. They know there's maybe no point favouring a driver because they're not going to be fighting for any kind of championship. So sort of focus on the constructors. So do you think Carlos will have a good year there, or do you think there is a concern that maybe with him leaving, Norris is going to get all the preferential treatment?
See, it's interesting because the way you phrased that was the exact thing that Sierra to Beatbull said about Ricardo.
Yeah.
It in that Renault not fighting for a championship, they need to develop the car as much as possible. So obviously they're not going to like chuck Ricardo to the curb. But in terms of their focus, but you can't take what team principals say at face value.
No.
But with regards to McLaren, I think you're right. I think especially with these pair of years sort of about to go into being a bit weird and kind of restricted in development and what you can do. I think it'd be foolish to throw away the opportunity to work with the talent you have, including like Carlos Sainz and McLaren, using his wider experience to help develop the car. And he's just, we've seen him. He's a very strong driver, and McLaren would do well to focus on what they can get, and they can still get fourth place in the championship, which is nothing to be sniffed at. So yeah, I do think there's you don't get that salty feeling from Zach Brown that you do get from some of the other team principals. I think at least in the way he presents himself, he seems someone who wants to galvanize a team more than maybe some others who I won't necessarily name.
Yeah. It's going to be, I think we've got a cracking midfield fight this year. I think, you've got Renault versus McLaren again, or McLaren versus Renault, then you throw your Racing Point in there. It could get quite stressful in there for the likes of Cyril. Bless him. He might have a bit of a headache with his drivers, as well as trying to fight off 2 or 3 teams. So the best of the rest scrap is something I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, the championship fight hopefully is going to be epic. But I'm pretty confident if that goes the same way as last year, we'll end up with a decent midfield to watch again. Dan's already talked about AlphaTauri, so I'll sort of come to him again on this one. Alfa Romeo, talking Alphas, quiet. They've been very quiet generally. Still won't respond to my email. Rude. But they've just been very quiet across the board. Didn't say much in testing, not heard much since. Are they maybe cautiously optimistic, or is that more to do with the fact that even as Sauber, they very rarely said an awful lot in the media?
Yeah, and Kimi's not the most out there character.
What?
It's a strange one with Alfa Romeo. They're a team that, to be honest, I had totally forgot about until you just mentioned them. Kimi, is this going to be his last year in Formula One? Will he want to go out with a bang, or will he just be Kimi and just enjoy it for one last season? Giovinazzi, I think, has got a big year, and I think he needs to really prove himself. So I think within the team, they've got quite a nice or good couple of storylines going on. But in terms of the on-track pace, judging on their performances and I suppose development over last season, I'm not really too sure whether they're going to really be able to mix it up with the big boys nearer the front. And I think it'll be a similar kind of season to last year. But then the year before that, when they had King Marcus and Charles Leclerc, their development was brilliant. They started off the year out in Q1, ended the year in Abu Dhabi, and I remember thinking potentially Charles Leclerc was on for a podium in that particular race and did a brilliant job. So they're a team that I think always, you're never quite sure what they're going to be able to deliver. But I think for the most part of the season, they will be at kind of that tail end of the midfield. But I think certainly they could have their day. And Giovinazzi is someone who needs to get big results if he wants to, I suppose, stay in Formula One long term.
Yeah. I have nothing to say on Alfa Romeo. It's a little bit like when we do the race reactions, and it's like Kimi Räikkönen. He turned up. He finished 7th somehow. They're just Sauber have always been a bit like that. Just a team that crack on with it, and that's fine. Haas and Williams. Dan, we'll come to you for Haas, obviously. What are you expecting from them this year? I mean, it can't be much worse than last year, can it? Bless them. I mean, it was they had a car with good raw speed, but they just could not deliver that. So they reckon they've solved that. Positives.
Yeah, and they did get better over the course of last year. They seemed to resolve some of those race pace issues, and by the end of the season, they were sneaking into Q3 a couple of times. I'm skeptical of how their year's going to go, especially looking that Williams are getting closer to that midfield. And I think Williams will probably still be at the back, but I think George Russell is a better driver than Grosjean and Magnussen. And I think that's another driver that they're probably both going to be behind if Williams have some kind of pace. And I think you said it in your video the other day. I think the biggest thing for them is just to not crash into each other, just to stay away from those silly mistakes. There are another couple of drivers that may not be on the grid next season, and that is going to be something the team are going to have to consider. But I'm really unsure with how they're going to go. I think the car will be better in the race than it was last year, but both of those drivers are going to have a miraculous turnaround on pace this year if they want to be anywhere near consistently finishing the points.
I'm just hoping they do well. I really, they're one of those teams I've got a bit of a soft spot for, if I'm being honest. I quite like how I love Gunter Steiner as well. He gives us plenty to meme about, doesn't he? So yeah, Williams, Jonty, and damn sexy new livery. It's not often I'll say that on a live stream, but yeah, that'll bring the sex bots into chat now. Damn it. But yes, I'm quite optimistic for them this season. I don't think they're going to be top end of the midfield, but I think they can be a bit more consistent with the point scoring than last year, and of course, a bit more consistent would be 2 points, really. But yeah, I think they can do better than last year now. I don't think they can be a bit like Haas. Can it really be any worse?
Well, that's it. It definitely can't be any worse. It is a great looking livery. It's still not the best, but compared to last year, this absolute different league. Just needs a few more sponsors on it. That'd be nice. But no, they definitely look better. They seem to be calmer and a bit less frantic at the moment over the last few weeks. At least that's the vibe I'm getting from them. You know, they're just getting on with it, despite all of the issues we've heard of for the last year or so. There seems to be just, let's just get to this season and do what we can. And I don't think it's out of the realms of the possibility for them to be looking at escaping Q3 every now and then, a few times, or at least fighting for it. So that I'll be super excited to see.
I mean, well, George Russell nearly did it in Hungary last year, didn't he, getting out of Q1? Oh, that was a moment. That was hundredths of a second away. That would have been incredible. But I mean, turning up for testing was their first target, and they did it on time. In fact, they were early, which was good. They got their shakedown in and everything. So I think things are better. Things are improving. Obviously, there's concerns over finances, so they've got to get it right this year. They've got to be racing, which is why you can't just cancel a Formula One season. We're already, Williams on the brink. McLaren, I think they've secured a loan now from Bahraini banks, so they should be okay. But they're both on the brink, and that's McLaren and Williams on the brink. So they've got to get racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as chat's pointing out, yes, I meant Q1. Personally, I still think it's back to front. One should mean the best.
That is definitely an argument for another day. But yeah, why not? A few Q3 appearances for Williams. You never know. Thank you to Granny Annie, Annette. It would appear we have 2 rainy weekends coming up. So excited. Dream scenario, Annette, to be honest, is dry or wet one week. Dry one weekend, wet the next. So wet next weekend, then dry the following week. Then it's a completely different couple of races. Because I'm a little bit concerned about that second race in Austria, Stuart. I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit concerned. There's no variation. The tyre compounds are the same. There's no reverse grid quali attempt. They're not running the track backwards or anything like that. It is going to be sort of Austria 2.0.
Yeah, and I know specifically Jonty and I are have the same peeve that they didn't change the tyre compounds between races, which they have done for Silverstone, but it is just an odd choice just to keep them the same when even they've fixed the tyre compound choices for every team as well at 2, 3, 8, I think.
I wonder if that was just a case of getting the season started.
I mean, I get the concern. I don't. Yeah, I think it's going to be fine. I think there is an interesting, even if the weather stays the same and stuff. I think there's this interesting element at if you have a bad Austrian Grand Prix 1, you can have revenge immediately in the was it Styrian Grand Prix? Styrian
Yes.
Grand Prix. That's a better name than 70th anniversary Grand Prix. So yeah, I don't think we should be too concerned. Although if both Grand Prix in the Red Bull Ring are very similar, then that's when we start to think, oh, double Silverstone might be a bit wrong. But I don't think it's going to come to that. I think it's going to be interesting. I think because we haven't seen this before, we haven't seen them have another crack at the same Grand Prix weekend, not only twice in the same season, but like straight back to back. I think it's, you know, we listen to like teams being interviewed and stuff about what went wrong, what lessons they learned after this Grand Prix, and now they don't have to. Now they can, act on it. They don't have to. They not just have to talk about the mistakes they made and what they would have done better. They can actually go and do it next time. So I think it'll be quite fascinating to see who can pick themselves up and learn the most from. In terms of the second Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix will essentially be an all action testing session. You're testing the cars in race format and learning for the second race, which I think is going to be interesting. I am disappointed they haven't chosen to mix it up a little bit, but we will take what we can get.
Yeah, and Seb Vettel saying that he thinks at the second race, because I think he said something like the level of perfection will be higher. The second race, it's going to be even closer. So I think there's a lot of maybe some merit in that statement. I don't know. We're going to find out. But I just wish they'd done... I'm not going to get into it again, but I wish they'd done something different for the second race. At least, like you say, with Silverstone, they've mixed the tyre compounds up just a little bit. I'm going to go on to questions now. I've got loads from social media. We'll get into chat as well. But super quickly... Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Massive thank you to everybody who followed my, what's the phrase? Call to action, I guess we could say, in Thursday's video. If you didn't see that, more than half of the views on this channel are from people who aren't subscribed. Since then, I think we've gained about 2,500 subscribers and we're cruising towards 100k. So if you are new, don't forget to hit that sub button and please do drop a like on the stream as well. Loads of content coming up over the next 37 years. It's going to be brilliant. I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited. I said to Jonty on Twitter the other day, just remember that when we get to August and I'm rocking backwards and forwards and I can't cope anymore. But for now, I'm very excited about this season. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. But we'll do some questions because there's some really good ones come in. And we might have touched on some of these. Phil Pott over on Twitter. Which team has the best reserve drivers if they would need to replace a driver for a couple of races? I did go through a list of the reserve drivers that were available the other day. I think it was Thursday. I'm obviously, aren't I, Dan? I'm going to say Mercedes because Stoff's there. We're obviously start this by saying none of us want a driver to come down with COVID. Of course we don't, but we have to discuss reserve drivers because we might need them, but it's got to be Van Dorn. Van Dorn's the best reserve driver in the world, ever. Just a shame he's not the best driver in the world, ever.
See, Pascal's better. Ferrari have got this sorted. Van Dorn's okay, but he's not on the level of Verline, mate. You know this.
Wow.
It's actually surprising. That's me kicked off. See you later, everyone. It's surprising the level of reserve drivers a lot of these teams actually, but I think Mercedes not only having Van Dorn but also Gutierrez, I think that's very strong to have as backup in case anyone does contract COVID. I think Red Bull having an experienced driver in Sebastian Buemi could be quite helpful, but is he going to be up to scratch to a modern Formula One car? I'm not really too sure. But even Ferrari, yes, they have Pascal Wehrlein, but also Antonio Giovinazzi, and then they can promote one of their youngsters potentially to Alfa Romeo. That's a really good lifeline for them. So I will have to concede and say Mercedes is the best, but I think Ferrari isn't far off.
Ferrari's official reserve driver is Giovinazzi. So if they take Giovinazzi, then that would see Kubica probably take the seat at Alfa. For those that aren't sure, Mercedes have got Van Dorn and Gutierrez. It's Sergio Sette Camara and Sebastian Buemi for Red Bull and Alfa. Ferrari, Giovinazzi, Pascal Wehrlein. They've got Brendan Hartley as well, I think, so there's options there. Alfa have got Robert Kubica. McLaren are going to use Mercedes reserves. Racing Point are going to use Mercedes reserves. However, they have first refusal. So if in the very unlikely event McLaren and Racing Point need a driver at the same time, then Racing Point will get the first pick between Van Dorn and Gutierrez, and then McLaren have who's left. Renault haven't listed anybody because their nominated drivers are all without super license points, so possibly an in for Hulkenberg, maybe Sirotkin. Haas have got Louis Delatraz and Pietro Fittipaldi, and Williams have got Jack Aitken as their official reserve. So lots of options in there, Jonty. Again, must stress, we don't want to see any driver come down with COVID. However, if they were to, are there any names in there that get you quite excited as a possibility to be racing in F1, apart from Stoffel, of course?
I wouldn't mind seeing Sergio Sette-Camara having a go, to be quite honest. He's always been quite an exciting driver in F2. He's had some brilliant fights with the likes of Markelov and Russell over, during his time there. So that could be interesting.
What about you, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I'm definitely, I was going to say looking forward to, but that has implications. I would, I'm definitely interested in seeing, junior drivers coming up and being able to see how they perform against the current roster. So, Sesse Camera, I think, has been sort of hovering around the periphery for a little while now. It'd be interesting to see him. I mean, kind of like you, I'd kind of like to give Van Dorn that extra chance, just stick him in a Mercedes and see how he goes, or any of the teams that Mercedes are sort of bubbled with. I'm kind of astonished that there isn't a more robust third driver system going on, and there's a lot of sort of woolly edges, especially this year. I thought people would have tightened that up a little bit because, well, anything can happen any day of the weekend. I feel like there should be plenty of people on hand. Anyway, but yeah, I do kind of have to agree with Jonty. I think Sesse Camara's kind of the prime of the bunch there.
Was it last year Pierre Gasly had a stomach bug and everyone was, who's Red Bull's reserve? And it was like, Buemi. And they're like, where's Buemi? And he was in Japan or something. Or I don't know if it was him specifically. It might be somebody else I'm thinking of. I'm getting confused. But everyone was kind of like, well, they haven't got anybody because they can't get anybody here. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I expected to have this really wonderful list of drivers that everyone had that was all nice and concise and we all knew what was going on. But I suspect following this season, there's going to be a lot of change in Formula One behind the scenes, and I think teams will be more active in signing up reserve drivers just in case, because you never know. Yeah, sort of the same question here. One from Daniel Rivera on YouTube. Thank you very much for your question. And Steckleton on Twitter, who also asked if we're okay. I'm good. Thank you very much. Both sort of asking if this championship, if Lewis Hamilton were to win the title or whoever wins the title, because it's a shorter season, does it mean less, Jonty? I think you actually answered that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it means more because it means you've got to be on it all the time. With 22 races, you can lose a couple of them and it doesn't sting you that much in the points. If we only end up with 15 and you lose 2, that's a much bigger percentage of the points available.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, a double DNF as well for a team could be pretty catastrophic as well in the championship. So I think, yeah, it's got to mean more. You've got to fight harder, haven't you? The thing is, though, it's a bit like I'm not going to get into that, actually. I won't even go down that road. But there's going to be a little asterisk next to this whole thing, isn't there? There's going to be but it didn't start till July and it was a shorter season. But to me, if Lewis Hamilton wins a 7th world title, it's still a world title. How many races were there when Fangio and co? I mean, was it Farina? How many did he win with? Was it 7? Something like
5.
that?
Yeah, 5. But like we go to what Stuart did video on all the point systems. You can argue some of those aren't worth quite as much. Even as late as, was it 91, 92? When they stopped the best certain amount out of all the races. So you could actually have terrible races and they wouldn't count. So that took a little bit of the value, whereas we don't have that now. So I get that just adds to it being worth more again.
Anything you want to add, Dan or Stuart?
No, I think Jonty's expressed pretty much how I feel as well. I mean, I'm confident we'll get more races, but even if it stayed at 8, I don't think it really takes away from what anyone does, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think your point about the sort of the asterisk next this season, even though I think people use that argument and it's not necessarily valid, I think that's part of the reason that Formula One was quite hesitant to do that fiddling to make the second weekend of Austria weather like any different. I think they already knew people were sort of having a little bit skeptical about how real this season was, and to clarify, it definitely is real, and it
Yeah.
definitely is worth a lot. But I feel that may have weighed into why they didn't want to mess with it any further.
I missed this one actually from YouTube. This would have come on good after the reserve drivers. Have the rules been changed or relaxed with regard to when a driver change can be made? And that's a great point, because previously I think a driver has to take part in at least one session, don't they, before they can race? I'm putting that question out there to you three, just if anybody's read anything, because I've not read anything on any rule changes regarding that. Because you might need a driver at extremely short notice. You might need one Sunday morning.
I haven't read anything regarding alterations around that. God, I wouldn't want to be the person in charge of making that decision. But I know it previously there has been some discrepancy, some leniency depending on what the situation is. So yeah, but I haven't seen anything official about that. But good point.
Yeah, I think you're right about they must have done a session. I think the shortest time we've had recently was Di Resta filling in for Massa, when it was like an hour before qualifying. I can't think of anything shorter notice than that.
I suppose it sounds silly, but it depends when the drivers are tested, doesn't it? If they're tested after qualifying and somebody is positive, then they'll need a driver for Sunday, but they might test them on a Friday morning and not test them again until Monday morning. That's been changed from every 2 days to every 5 days. Yeah, so I suppose that's the answer. Really depends when they're tested, but we've not read anything on that one at all. I will come to you in chat in just a second. I've got a couple more I want to ask from social media and YouTube as well. Heps wins, so will it be considered a European Championship? Thank you for the question. No, it will still be a World Championship. Ross Brawn has confirmed that the criteria for having to race on 3 continents won't need to be met this year. So even if we just have the 8 races in Europe, it will still be classed as a World Championship. We've talked about Ferrari, but thank you very much for your question, Stuart Garlick. Will Ferrari give quiet preference to Charles in any battle with Seb, given he is staying in 2021? Ruben, do you think that teams will drastically switch up their race strategy for the second race in Austria based on what happens in the first one? Really hope so, because we need some kind of variation, and that kind of kicks into the next question from Kirill over on Twitter, who says, if we have a wet race in Austria, who do you have your money on for the race win and a midfield podium? That feels like the kind of question I need to come to Jonty for. If we have a wet race in Austria, who do you have your money on for the race win and a midfield podium? In before he says Russell and Stroll. But actually on Stroll, good point. As we've discussed before, Jonty, great with cold tyres. He can drive in the wet. If that car's good enough, maybe he can sneak a podium.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for the win, based on what we've seen, it's got to be between Lewis and Max. Lewis has absolutely shown time and again how good he is in the wet, and so has Max. You know, he's had a few occasions now where he's just blown people away when he really shouldn't have. But for the rest of the field, Stroll's really shown that skill for slippery conditions. So, like you say, if the car's good enough, that would upset a lot of people, and I would totally be here for it.
I got a question for you, Dan, because I know how much you love answering stuff like this.
Oh, God.
Opinions on the new graphics, the new AWS graphics. What do you reckon to them?
Oh, see, I think I'm going to be in a different boat to you lot, because I don't mind. I mean, they're a bit over the top, but I'm just going to say don't mock them till you try them. I mean, if it's going to be completely overused like the AWS ones were last year, then yeah, they can get straight in the bin. But if there's 1 or 2 every race, then I'm never going to moan about more graphics. It's just whether it takes it away from what's going on track. But I'm not going to moan about them just yet. But I'll hold my tongue because probably after the first race I'll be very frustrated.
I mean, I'm not a fan of most of them, but I am quite looking forward to seeing how they do the one for the 70th anniversary race with the comparison between current drivers and previous drivers, classic drivers, if you like. I'm quite looking forward to that, Jonty, and how they go about doing it. But the others are a bit gimmicky.
I don't know. Me and Stuart and Aaron had quite a lot of fun mocking them before they were here. I'm just worried about how far they'll take it. We've already seen they're not afraid to do something really ridiculous, like the Heineken Rainbow Roadstar. I've actually just had an idea come into my head, and I hope they can't hear my thoughts. You mentioned the 70th anniversary. What if we get some kind of CGI Fangio or Ascari car coming, put onto the track as they come down to take the checkered flag? Oh, can you imagine?
I feel sick just thinking about it. It'd be interesting, a bit like the CGI Shadow of the Eagle from Kota a couple of years ago.
No, that was so bad.
Love it. I love, it is cheesy, but I think it'll be interesting to see how they go about it.
It was just the sizing of it, Shadow that big, the eagle would have been about 300 foot across.
Oh dear. No. I mean, like Dan says, we'll give them a go. They could be fantastic. I suspect they won't be. But I will just say this, Stuart. I don't want to be negative on this stream. I really don't, but I'm going to say it. What does it say about the state of Formula One that we need all these on-screen graphics to entertain us? Surely the racing should be enough to do that.
Yeah, and hopefully it will. I'm definitely with Dan in that I hope they're used sparingly. The one thing I will say about them is there's a lot of them that are like ratings and stuff. Even the 70th anniversary one, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work when they're like comparing modern drivers with historic drivers, whether that's just showing you corner speeds or whatever. But the things where they give ratings to like drivers and teams and the things which we've already seen did not go down well in the sort of within the Formula One game as they've shown it, where everybody's been given a sort of top trumps card. I think that's a really fun thing that fans like to argue. Doesn't really have a definitive answer, and we can talk about like who's the best of the current drivers and who's the best overtaker and stuff. I think it is problematic when F1 is officially saying, whatever, Hamilton is better than Vettel, or Leclerc is a better overtaker than Verstappen. If they're putting it on the screen and telling you that, like, we've crunched the data, here's that. I think that's it doesn't sit right. I think perfect for like magazines, fans, videos. We all like to discuss that stuff. But when F1 is saying that as that's their official line on it, I think that's a bit weird and slightly wrong. It doesn't feel right.
I should say I'm not against more stuff being shown on the screen, but we want real data, as Stuart said on Twitter. We have real numbers, actual stuff. There's two drivers in a fight. Show us both of their tyre temps live, because they've got all that information. It goes back to the garage so like every couple of tenths of a second or something stupid. So that can be shown. Don't give us algorithmic, effectively made up stuff. Give us real stuff, but not the silly little animated steering wheels from a few years ago.
I just really hope that the team they've got to pick these numbers isn't the same team that Codemasters use to rate the drivers, because I'd love to meet the person that seems to think that Bottas is rated as highly as Max Verstappen. I think that's hilarious. My other half had to pick me up off the floor after I read those. 90 rated along with Verstappen. I'm afraid if Bottas is 90 rated, then Verstappen's at least 93. But let's not get into that one. That's an argument for another day. I'm sure there'll be plenty of time. Thank you very much to Kieran for your contribution, mate. Lewis versus Max next weekend. I think it could be. To be honest, anybody versus anybody is fine. I just want to see cars on track now. It's getting very... it's getting exciting now. It's been far too long without any racing. I've just seen Ben in chat, and he said something that I wanted to read. Michael Buffer narrating AWS graphics under a CGI star is the future. Thank you, Ben, for that one. And welcome to the chat. Good to see you, mate. And also thank you to Alex, I won't read your last name, over on PayPal for your contribution. That is massively appreciated. So thank you. So questions in the chat then, people. And we will answer a few for sort of 10 minutes. And by 10 minutes, I mean like 6 weeks, probably. You know what it's like over here on the F1 Word. There are a couple of good questions coming in. I think somebody asked about Grosjean. Dan, again, that feels like a question for you, mate. I can't find the comment, but I believe it was, do we think this is Grosjean's last season?
I mean, I've thought that for the last 3 or 4 seasons, so I'm at the point now where I don't know what to think, to be totally honest. He's got to have a good year, I think, if he wants to remain in F1, and I think it's more than about time that has to make a change to one of their drivers, so it probably will be. But again, I've thought this for so long now, and I don't think last year was as bad as 2018. So if they didn't get rid of him the last couple of years, and if he's okay this year, maybe they'll keep him. I'm really not sure, to be honest.
So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't really want to. There's no point saying because it's somebody else has asked about Kimi Raikkonen. Is it his last season? We've been saying that about Raikkonen and Grosjean for God knows how long, and they're still there. So, I mean, Kimi will race, won't he, Jonty, until he's had enough of racing. He just loves racing. It's as simple as that. So he's until he's bored, that's it. And somebody will sign him, whatever happens. But maybe Grosjean, game over this year, unless, of course, he absolutely nails it, which he could do. We've seen what he could do in the Lotus, what was forever ago now, 7 years ago.
It could well be. Seems likely. I think they both got a hell of a lifeline being kept on for this year. I think we all agreed on that at the end of last year. So it's on him again. It's all down to how he performs. So if he can pull a good season out the back, then I don't see any reason why he shouldn't find a seat elsewhere or keep the one he's got. But if he has another 2018, then not a chance.
Great comment from Sue in chat. How about instead of random graphics, they show us sites a couple of times? I like that. Very good. The more data needs to be real as opposed to computer guesses. That's from Robert McPhee. I think we all kind of agree with that one. Plastic Block of Grey wants to know the chances of a Kubica comeback. This season, of course, it'll be down to possibly having to step in. But in the future, Stuart, do you think Kubica is going to come back? I mean, he's got some good sponsorship behind him. And, you know, last year wasn't epic, but he did score a point. He was there when he needed to be. So maybe in with a shot. I'll be honest, I'm not sure he will.
It seems unlikely, doesn't it? Sorry, you.
No.
Okay, I thought I heard you. I didn't know what year we're in now. 2019 didn't do him any favors, did it? But then he was in that Williams. But I just don't see it happening. I think he's great in this sort of reserve and development role. But unless we start getting some new teams in and seats need to be filled.
What I would say on Kubica, to try and, you know, not completely ruin your hopes of him coming back, is if somebody had told me 3 years ago that he'd be back in Formula One, I wouldn't have believed them. So when it comes to Kubica, I guess anything is possible. So that's a nice way to put that. Profile one, there are no other races confirmed yet. Question, no, but we're expecting something tomorrow or Tuesday. It looks as though Mugello will be after Monza. I think that's done. And it's going to be the Tuscany Grand Prix, I believe. So that'll be, 3 straight triple headers. So 3 races, weekend off, 3 races, weekend off, 3 races, weekend off. Probably a double header in Sochi, it's looking like, although things aren't great in Russia at the moment, I will say that, so maybe there could be a change there. I think there's 2 races in China on the cards, and I believe Canada are trying to get in October, back-to-back with the US, and then it's 2 in Bahrain, possibly using the outer circuit, the oval-like circuit, and then 1 in Abu Dhabi. Thank God, just 1 in Abu Dhabi. Don't know if I've handled 2 in a row there, but yeah, so that's the rumour at the moment, but nothing confirmed, obviously, officially. But some stuff expected this week. I don't know if it'll be the full calendar, Stuart. I don't know if you've read anything, but there'll be at least another couple of races confirmed, I would have thought.
Yeah. And, the rumors are getting stronger about these extra European races that are sort of coming back from the dead,
Yeah.
or being slotted in. I think Jonty and I have been teasing each other about the locations that various teams are choosing to do a shakedown of their cars at. Portugal, Imola, Mugello, are all the kind of circuits that people have been asking for. Other than that, in terms of, and especially in terms of the wider world, it's all still. I think there's just a lot of logistics and administration going on. That's like, what can we do? How do we fit it in? What can countries do? And while still having a sort of question mark over what the world looks like at that point. But yeah, nothing confirmed yet. But I think how you described it is basically how I understand it. It looks likely to be. But excited about that Bahrain outer circuit. I'll say it.
Yeah.
I'll be the excited person if no one else is going to be.
It doesn't look great for overtaking, but do we get a lot of overtaking in Formula 1 for that to be a concern at the moment? I mean, it looks like a fast track, very few corners, a bit like Austria, and look what Austria does for us. So just be nice to see something different, wouldn't it? But I will say, actually, I think Imola, I think you've said it a lot on Twitter, Stuart, the racing probably wouldn't be brilliant there, but from a nostalgic point of view, it would be quite cool. But I have a feeling that it was a case of Mugello or Imola. I don't think they'll go with 3 Italian races, because you'd probably have to have 4 races back to back to fit that in. So I don't know. I'm hoping they can squeeze Canada in. Not sure, but I think Vietnam is pretty much off. I think that's done. I can't see that. It's part street track, isn't it? So Singapore, we know, is cancelled. Japan, gutted. Dan won't be. Gutted about Japan being cancelled. But yeah, it's... How many races do you reckon we'll get then, Jonty? Go on. You love this sort of thing.
I'm going to say 16. Although the Canada one, I've been looking into that, and they're sort of aiming for the second weekend of October. I've been looking at sort of the average weather you get there for that time of year, and it could be anything from nice, balmy, sort of 17-degree autumn days to an inch of snow. It's highly unpredictable what they could get at that time, so they could do with that being a bit earlier.
Yeah, you could maybe end of September for Canada, and then straight to the US first week in October. Something like that. I don't think Brazil and Mexico are going to happen either, by the way. Certainly not Brazil. The thing is, that's November, isn't it, potentially? That's a long way away. Anything can happen between now and then, but F1 need to make decisions. I think we kind of almost need the calendar, even if it's just provisional, to be released this coming week, because it's going to make this season... I mean, this season's weird anyway, but we're going to go into the season not knowing how many races are going to go ahead. And we could be in this awful situation where, let's say we get to the penultimate race in Bahrain, for argument's sake, and we've got a world championship fight between Hamilton and Verstappen. There's 6 points between them, big title showdown in Abu Dhabi, and Abu Dhabi gets called off for COVID reasons, and then the champion is crowned away from a racetrack. We need a solid calendar. They need to be sure they can get these races in. They need to be sure these races, or as sure as they can be, that these races can go ahead. And I think we need to know before Austria, to be honest, Dan. It takes me ages to do maths. I don't want to be messing around, mid-October. I want to know.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like you've all said, I think the rumours are that it's going to be some time in the next couple of days. We could see a few more races, but I certainly think if we maybe head into Silverstone for the British Grand Prix and we still have no more news about, I suppose, even over 10 or 12 races, then I'd start to get worried. But I think, like Jonty, I think 16 races is plausible. F1 bosses seem to be saying still between 15 and 18. So I wouldn't get too nervous just yet, but it would be nice if they gave us something to look forward to past the Italian Grand Prix.
I think 16 seems about right. I think 18 is a bit ambitious, isn't it, Stuart? That feels like a bit much.
It does, other than the fact that they seem to be very willing to just do a double race somewhere if they can, So I feel like F1 will try and push it towards 18 if they can, by just bringing in these extra European tracks, doubling up tracks that can take it. A few months ago I would have embraced few months, well, however longer, I would have been very surprised. But now I'm like, well, maybe it will go up to 18. Maybe F1 will just make it happen, and we'll just be racing every weekend till Christmas. Who knows? But yeah, I wouldn't be massively surprised if they shoehorned that together somehow.
I mean, you've got to think. Sorry, I was just going to say, you got to think. Apart from one, give or take a week, by the time we start, we will be on the 10th race.
Yeah.
With only 11 or 12 left to do. They really think they're going to cram 18 in that time? Not a chance.
I was going to say, I said 18 was ambitious, but actually, if you go back well, you don't have to, but a few minutes ago in the stream, I did actually say, we've got the 9 race if you include Mugello, then 2 at Sochi, 2 at China, 1 at Canada, 1 at the US, 2 at Bahrain, 1 at Abu Dhabi. I think that made 18. So actually, it's possible, but it's a lot of racing to cram in, isn't it? And then I've got a feeling Formula 2 and Formula 3 might only run the European stage. Because logistically getting them around the world as well as Formula 1 isn't going to be easy. I suppose they can all go on the same freight, but it's big risk to take going places like China and Russia and things like that. So we'll see on the calendar. Chat can get involved in this one as well. I'm going to go alphabetically, and that wasn't planned, Dan, I promise, at all. But
yes.
one bold prediction for the 2020 season, Dan. You can start, followed by Jonty, obviously, and then me and Stuart.
A Norris podium is what I will go with.
Dan trying to make friends in chat. Jonty.
I'll stick with the ridiculous one that said for someone else on Twitter. 7 midfield podiums.
Wow. Are they all Perez?
Probably. No,
story.
I'm going back to my 2019 prediction style. Just pure wishful thinking, and if it happens, everyone wins.
Yeah. I'll stick with my one. I'll stick with my one from earlier. Ocon to beat Ricciardo for the reasons I explained earlier as well. What about you, Stuart?
I have a suspicion. Oh, it's a tough one. I'm going to go for Williams don't come last.
Ooh.
Just I think I think they're going to be stronger, and I think there's enough variables in the air that if they play it right, maybe they could get some points where others can't, and sneak their way above. Maybe Alpha, maybe Haas, depending on how they're doing.
There you go. 4 bold predictions. Ignore every single one of them. Actually, no, I was going to say this. Don't necessarily rule out what Jonty says. I remember before the 2018 season, I asked him the same question. He said 10 points finishes for Charles Leclerc, and everyone went, Jonty's drunk. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Leclerc scored 10 points finishes that year, and we all went, well, damn. Jonty's good at these things. He's very good at these things. So there you go. But I wouldn't go put money on any of those. I'll read some of yours from chat. Phil Potts says Grosjean podium. Stroll podium from Ellie. If that racing point is as good as people make out, I'd keep an eye on Stroll. He needs to sort his Saturdays out. But yeah, I think he might get a podium or 2. Why not? 2 Albon wins. Yes, that would be pretty cool. Love to see him on for a podium. Aaron said the same. Alex Albon's first podium will be a win. That's a good one. Science on TV. Yeah, no, that's the worst bold prediction I've ever seen. That's never going to happen. McLaren will finish 3rd, says Andre. Ooh, screenshot. Rivlon says a new champion, so maybe a Verstappen or Leclerc. That would be cool. Stroll will get more podiums than Perez. That's from Charlotte Taylor. Wow, there's some good ones here. Haas podium from Dominic, obviously going back to the Grosjean one there as well. Maybe Dan, well, you'd hear Dan if he did it, so that'll be awesome. New winner, that was from Profile 1. Scroll down a bit further. Number 1 says maybe Ferrari finishes last. It could happen. It could happen. Haas leaves, says Samar. I can't find it now. It disappeared. It was a really good one as well, and it's gone. So apologies for that one. Pink Mercs will beat Ferrari. That's from Touchpad. DK Films says Sainz will win a race. Take a couple more. Hulkenberg announces his return in 2021 at blank. So, see, Martin there's made a prediction, but he's just bottled it with the team there. That is such a sure prediction. Love it. Yeah, Hulkenberg will be back, but I don't know who with. Yes, Albon race win, and one more. I want something really crazy. Come on, one really crazy one. Latifi to outscore Russell. That comes from Arj. And then Vettel wins the championship. But Latifi outscore Russell? I mean, Kubica did it, to be fair. Depends on the circumstances. But yeah, some interesting. They're still coming through. I'm just keeping an eye on them now. Some interesting. Albon outscores Vettel. That's a good one. I think Red Bull are going to be strong this year. But yes, we're gonna leave it there. Because I could read these all day. I love bold predictions.
Crofty to say Toro Rosso 1,200 times.
Oh, Toro Rosso, Alpha Tauri, Alfa Romeo. Yes, Alfa Romeo, Alpha Tauri. That's going to get confusing. I can see that straight away. But I love the Alpha Tauri livery, by the way. I love two things I need to squeeze in. I love Van Dorn. I love the Alpha Tauri livery. There we go. Live stream complete. Absolutely perfect. Thank you very much, Dan, for coming along, mate. This time next week, I haven't asked anybody if they want to do race reaction, but we could have just finished discussing the first race of the season, mate. Oh, it's a bit exciting.
Thanks for having me, mate, first of all. And my goodness me, it's so close now. I actually cannot wait. But thanks for having me, buddy.
Let's just hope it doesn't do what Australia did when it got close. Yeah. I think I'd just cry. Thank you very much, Jonty. It's been great to talk to you again, mate. Fantastic to chat and make some nonsense predictions again. And yeah, I think we're up for this. We're ready for this now, aren't we, mate? We've had a few months off, bit of a break, but let's get some racing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all here for it. And it's going to be great, no matter what happens. I think we're all going to enjoy it a lot more than we thought we were going to this year.
I don't think I'll ever complain about a dull race again. Again,
exactly.
Remember that quote in 6 races' time when it's been terrible. But yeah, thank you very much, mate. And also thank you to you as well, Stuart. It's been awesome to have you on once again. And yeah, I guess last word to you from the guests, if you like, for 2020. Apart from hype, you can't say hype.
I won't say hype. I'm looking forward to being absolutely exhausted in like 10 weeks' time when we've had 14 races. I don't mind the stress. I don't mind the being overworked. I'm absolutely ready for it. We've had enough rest. Let's go.
Let's do it. Oh, yes, I'm ready for this. But thank you very much, all of you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you very, very soon. So thank you for coming on.
Cheers.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much to Jonty, Stuart, and to Dan. All three of us back together once again. And thank you to you guys for tuning in. Just to let you know, loads of content, basically. You're sick of this voice. You'll be sick of it. I'm sick of it, and it's coming out of my mouth. But yeah, lots of content coming up. Going to be not going to be live at all. There'll be a video out tomorrow or Tuesday. Could be the calendar news, or there'll be a news roundup if that doesn't get announced. And then on Thursday, it is the first preview of the 2020 season. Cannot wait for that one. Very excited. And then we're going to have a practice roundup on the Friday. We're going to have a race look ahead on the Saturday, a race reaction on the Sunday, and probably some analysis as well on the following Monday. And then we do it all again. 3 races back to back, weekend off, 3 races, weekend off. God knows how many races. I don't even care anymore. 7 months without Formula One. I'm totally up for this one. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. It's been awesome. Don't forget to drop a sub if you are new. And before you disappear as well, chat or saying goodbye. Before you disappear, please do drop a like on the video as well. Massively helps out the channel, and it's good to see. Just for your hype. If not for the video, not for the stream, just a thumbs up for your hype for the Formula One season. Well ready for it. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow or Tuesday with another video. But in the meantime, don't forget that you can, of course, follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye-bye.